Yes, guys, hello. Welcome back to the SpursRelated YouTube channel and podcast. I hope you're doing very well today. And as always, we've got a co-host alongside Joseph McBride and Andre. Guys, how are you doing?
Good, great. How are you, Joe?
Good. Looking forward to the football this weekend, but also split allegiances with the Super Bowl Sunday.
Okay, looking forward to that. Yeah. I've heard some mad stats about viewing figures for that game. It's just going to be crazy.
Not as much as Liverpool United though every year.
Yeah, true. Who's the headline music artist, Joe? I know you look forward to that.
Oh, it's an amazing halftime show. They got Kendrick Lamar, Eminem. They've got Snoop Dogg. They've got Dr. Dre. Yeah, and Mary J. Blige.
Is Daniel Levy making an appearance at any point for his entertainment shows or not?
No, but it is being held at Stan Kroenke Stadium, so that's why the minimum ticket is $6,000.
Brilliant.
Oh,
Well, that just makes my blood boil. And let's go back to the football topic of things. Joe, I can see you got a fresh haircut. That's not football topic, but we like to make things a bit more jazzy around here. Looking sharp, my friend. Yes, fan phone in Friday. What a day! It's becoming a regular occurrence. We got obviously a few familiar faces, but without further ado, we've got quite a busy lineup today. We've got 3 or 4 people coming in. Let's invite our first guest in. He's the man from the Spurs Talk Show. I actually believe he's only been on this channel once before, and Sean might even correct me. It might even not even been once. It might have just been on other channels. But I've been on a few streams with him. This guy is an absolute legend. He knows his stuff. Here he is. It's Sean from the Spurs Talk Show. Sean, how you doing today, mate?
I'm good, James. I'm good. I will correct you. I have yet to make an appearance. This is my debut on your show.
Do you know what? Huge debut. I think it's because I came on your channel, then we were on Dave's channel, then it's been a busy one. But this guy is full of beans. Can we say that in terms of the game day? We're not on game day yet, so we can't get his opinion on the kind of the classic line, Sean, that you say. But okay. Sean, let us know. Are you looking forward to the game day after what a horrific day it was on Wednesday night?
Yeah, of course. I'm looking forward to it. Listen, I understand that the gut reaction. First of all, before I get into it, it's nice to meet you, Joe. Nice to meet you, Andre. I've seen your show.
It's me, man.
Nice to put a face to names and things. James, look, I'm massively looking forward to Sunday. I'm going to the game. Going to meet a few of the team from the Irish Hotspur and Tottenham Tantrum Gold that are making their way over from Ireland for it. So there's an additional reason to be excited. But I also think that Tottenham have got some work to do to correct a few wrongs from what happened, a couple of days ago, and it was really important we got the 3 points against against Southampton. For a variety of reasons, James, it didn't happen, but Wolves is another kettle of fish altogether, and it's doubly important now that we keep that if we want our top 4 hopes to continue. So yeah, and I think that Tottenham are going to put it right. So I'm excited and positive generally.
Good stuff. Well, I'll let the other guys ask you some questions in a minute. But for the Southampton game on Wednesday, what was it that majorly went wrong? Do you think it was sort of the midfield display, or can you not really single out any names? Was it a collective, just absolute mess up?
No, I think you could definitely single out a few players that had shockers, but there wasn't a single player on the pitch. I think maybe Hugo Lloris had a decent game, and Bentancur had a good game when he came on. But Bentancur was also on the pitch when it all went tits up, right? So I think that that there was a lot of sorry, I shouldn't maybe have said that word, but there was lots of. Are we okay? Are we okay making?
Yeah.
Fair enough. There was nobody that really put their hand up and grabbed the ball by the horns and grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. So I definitely put it down to a team, disappointing performance. I'd even go as far as to say, and dare I say it's not a popular opinion, but I think that Conte has to take some slice of the blame. I'm not somebody that allows anybody to get away with bad decisions or bad performances just because they are the best that we've ever had in that certain role. And he's definitely the best we've ever had as a manager at Tottenham, at least the biggest name. He might not necessarily turn out to be the best, but the biggest name we've ever had, at least in my lifetime. And so I think a few people will allow him to make decisions that the community doesn't necessarily agree with, or we scratch our heads, but we think, in Conte we trust, therefore he knows more than us, therefore it is probably correct. But I don't think, there's been a number of times in the last 10 games where I've scratched my head with some of his decision making, and I thought against Southampton, I think that the game was clearly going wrong after 25, 30 minutes. And, a proactive manager would have maybe made a change earlier than he did. At least by half time, he should have changed something. And I think the reason it went wrong was because the 3-4-3 is a formation that we're forced to play at the moment because of an injury to Skip and because of the way our squad looks. But Harry Winks can't play in a 3-4-3. And even against Brighton, when we played the 3-4-3 and we won the game, there were still moments in that game where we were incredibly leaky through the midfield. And, had Brighton had like Mopé, for example, had he had his shooting boots on or whatever, the game could have ended up a little bit differently. We got away with that one. We didn't get away with it against Southampton. I think that the quicker that Conte realises and recognises, guys, that a 3-4-3, whilst it might be a necessary formation, given where we are and the fact that Skippy's injured, I think you have to recognise that Harry Winks is at best a 3-5-2 player.
Yeah,
he can't play a 3-4-3.
He needs that. He needs that added support, doesn't he? Like he's an absolute shambles. Otherwise, it's a really good point, Sean. Joe, I'll go over to you. First of all, very quickly, what were your thoughts on the game? Why did it all go wrong for Spurs? And then obviously I'll move you on to maybe a question you have for Sean in terms of the game and maybe for Wolves as well.
Well, Hull had a massive problem because goal 2 and goal 3 for Southampton was literally the same. It was a whip ball in from Ward-Prowse and an uncontested header. It was so bad. The fact it happened twice was just shocking. And I know obviously it'd be harsh to single people out, but I think Emerson went from having a really positive game against Brighton to a pretty abysmal one against Southampton, and just that change of class because Southampton can actually finish at the moment. It just obviously it showed you were quite leaky at the back. I was actually out. I watched the highlights when I came back, but I saw it was 2-1 and I was like, oh, you'll be fine now. And I looked at my phone about 20 minutes later and I was shocked. But when I saw the highlights, I wasn't. And contentious decision. I think your second goal was actually quite lucky to stand with the foul on the sideline. I don't know if you agree with that or not. That's something I was going to ask. Do you think that was a foul, or do you think that you were rightfully given that goal?
Yeah, I'll give this to Sean. This question, yeah, for sure.
Sorry, which foul? Which foul are you talking about? Sorry.
I think it was Emerson. It was right on the touchline near the halfway line. And he just clattered into him and then landed on him. And then play obviously continued. And then Son scored right at the end of it. I don't know if you remember it, but it was.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, he went down and he looked like he had broken his neck or something from the from the reaction. Yeah. No, I mean at the time on the stream that I was on, Joseph, I did actually say. We were celebrating, but I did actually call it and say that on another day that if that was a Tottenham player that had fallen over in the way he did, that should have been a free kick against. Yeah, I actually tend to agree with that analysis. Although he got up after about 6 or 7 minutes of after about 6 or 7 minutes of rolling around on the floor, he got up and put in a worldie after that. So his neck wasn't that bad. Let's be honest.
Yeah. One thing I'd say as well is obviously Conte's record's been good for you at home, and that's the first loss I believe, especially in the league. I remember when it was at Chelsea. I know it's obviously a horrible word to say on this channel, but it took a bit of a kind of eye-opening loss for him to really kick in and to really, improve that team and get his right formation, get the right system and kind of hammer down some loose ends. And I'm hoping for your sake that that's what's going to happen here, because he was fuming and rightfully so.
Yeah. I mean, look, from a Tottenham perspective, Joe, I would say. There's certain specific players that I'm really worried about the reaction, and because if you saw, I don't know if you were watching, Joe, but I'm sure Andre and James were against Brighton. On Emerson Royale put in the best performance in a Tottenham shirt, and when he scored the goal, even though it wasn't his goal, when he looked like he scored, it wasn't just relief on his face; it was anger, it was frustration, he was pumping his chest, he was mouthing things towards. Whether it was the dugout or the fans, but it was essentially saying things like "Don't doubt me," I'm the man. And then he puts in a performance that was an absolute stinker. And I think that he rightly should probably be dropped for the game against Wolves, guys. And I feel like I looked on Twitter, like he was getting some venomous abuse, and so I worry about his confidence. I worry about how he's going to feel after that, because he did put in a stinker, but so did everybody else. And Tottenham fans generally, like all football fans, will look for the who's the hangman, right? Who can we go after to kind of allocate accountability and responsibility? And Emerson took it on the chin this time, and I don't know if he's going to be up for a game against Wolves. So now we have to look to Matt Doherty to put in a shift.
That's what I was going to say. That was the next thing. That's the problem with Matt Doherty, do you trust this guy? Like, he's been absolutely shambolic since he's been here. He's put in maybe one good performance, and that's being nice. Like, do you trust this guy? I know Emerson's having an absolute shocker, but you know, Matt Doherty, man, it makes my hair like curl. Like, it just,
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't trust him. I don't trust him at all. Like, we've got massive problems, unresolved issues on our right hand side. I don't, there's rumours that Kulusevski will play that will end up being right wing back. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Nah, the guy can't even run. The guy, look, for me, this right wing back, I know Conte mentioned something to do with it, but like from what I've seen so far, Kulusevski, he doesn't look like a quick player, does he? Like, we can all agree on that. And he's a giant. Like, he's 6 foot 1, 2. Like, he's a big lad as well. Like, he's just not the right player for right wing back for me. No. He's just. And defensively, let's be honest, he's probably not going to be great. He's mainly played right wing or striker in his lifetime. So I just don't. It's like, again, it's this saying I say all the time, papering over the cracks. We should have signed a right wing back. Like, if Conte wasn't happy with Emerson, he's clearly not happy with Doherty. Why has that not been looked at?
But I mean, you can't. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? You can't necessarily fix all the positions in January. It's difficult to get as much done as we did do in January, and we're just gonna have to buckle down and hold on for dear life, And that all of the away teams are going to attack us down that side like they did when we had Aurier. It's a very susceptible, weak, vulnerable position that we have, but you just hope that there's going to be more support. If Dyer comes back in, then maybe Romero can switch out to the right centre back position and he can help Emerson out defensively, and then maybe that gives him a bit more freedom, or even Doherty then can come in and play a little bit more offensively. And or you have to look for Lucas Moura to step out wide when he can, to take the crossing responsibility off of the shoulders. We have to figure it out, but we can't figure it out with anything else than what we already have. Like, whatever the square peg in the round hole, however you file that square peg down to fit it into a round hole, it has to be done soon. It has to be done with what we have. And that's why you're paying Conte 250 grand a week, right? That's his job. Figure it out, bro. And that's why I don't feel like he is with his to Joseph's point. I felt like I didn't even answer Joseph's kind of point a minute ago, but like Conte did look frustrated, Joe, after the Chelsea game, and I think he's frustrated after the game the other night. But I reserve judgment. I'm reserving judgment on him. He's only ever done it at the best level, the highest level, with all the money and all the resources in the world to make things work. I'm not in any way doubting him. He's definitely been a massive improvement on Mourinho and Nuno, but I want to see him step up now. And if you want to get paid 15 million quid a year, like, let's see what you've got, bro. Figure it out. Figure out how to make the best of what we have and do better than getting like turned over convincingly for 90 minutes by a pressing team like Southampton. That they were in cruise control in the first half and cruise control in the second half. And it was a shambles, and they got a lot to prove against Wolves, or it's going to get toxic again, like it did towards the end of the 2021.
Yeah, you're spot on about the toxicity, and it's a real shame actually, because I remember being in streams after the Brighton game. There was such a buzz around the club again. Like, although it was only one result, everyone was like, "Well, we've got 2 games in hand. We win them, we're back on for top 4." Like, we're actually probably at an advantage to the challenges surrounding. Bar maybe sort of Man United, but even they're slipping up, like drawing with Burnley. And then suddenly we lose at home to Southampton, 2-1 up in the 80th minute. Absolutely bottle it. There's no other word for it. Like, 2 goals conceded in 2 minutes. I thought I was watching like some kind of horror show. Like, and the fact it was just pouring with rain. The fans went nuts. And you know what? Rightly so. Southampton were absolutely brilliant. Let's not take anything away from them. That's probably the best I've seen Southampton play for a good couple of years. And of course, it's against us. But at the same time, we've let them play well. We have let them play well. Anyway, before I get into the next question, Andre, I'll go to you and your thoughts very briefly, and then I'll get you to give Sean another question. But Jelly and Ice Cream's in here. Big yourself up, mate. Always in here. Absolute legend of a guy. Gaz is in here. Sean's in here as well. 500 subs. And he actually meant 600. The numbers are just growing, guys. The sport's been brilliant lately. We really appreciate it. Brian's in here. He says, I think the new signings have to start the next game. Southampton game showed that they could change the game for us. Bentancur to start and control that midfield. Yeah. I'll go with Andre on this question very quickly. Andre, what are your thoughts on Bentancur? Do you think he should start next game? And
Well, actually, that sort of leads into the question I had for Sean, because I did think overall the game, we weren't taking it from the front foot right from the get-go. And, Sean, I really liked your analysis. 100% you're correct. And I do think Conte really needs to take this under the chin. Because personally, I think the game was fully lost the minute that he made some substitutions. Now, the first one was okay, but who he took out to bring in Bentancur might be debatable. So my question to you is, do you think he got his substitutions correct, both the ones he brought in and the ones he took out?
Listen, I'm not going to suggest that I think Højbjerg had a good game, because I don't think he did. I think Højbjerg deserved to be hooked as well. We didn't have any other options, so they had the choice. He had the choice of, if he wanted to keep to the 3-4-3, he had to hook Højbjerg or Winks. Either of them, both of them were playing poorly. I personally think, if you think back to like peak Mourinho, like when Mourinho was at Chelsea, he would have sat there and seen in the first 25 minutes, 30 minutes of the game, this isn't working. Like, we're getting overrun in midfield. The 3-4-3 isn't working. Mora looks like a duck out of water. Harry Kane is not coming deep. He's not supporting. He's putting too much responsibility on the back two. And then the gaps that were there were leading all sorts of problems down the back, for Sanchez, and for even Romero looked shaky. But for me, what I think I would have really been happy to have seen him do, even if he failed, I would have really been positive with the approach, was to be a proactive manager like peak Mourinho, when he would have taken off one or either kept the 3-4-3 but hooked Winks or hooked Højbjerg inside 30 minutes when it was clear for everyone that this formation just wasn't working. Southampton were overrunning us in midfield, or take off Lucas Moura and bring on Bentancur and go to a 3-5-2 to give the midfield more stability. Because even when we scored the goal, even when we went 1-0 up, it was against the run of play, and they equalised pretty quickly. And I don't think that the 3-4-3 wasn't working against that team that day in the bad weather. It never worked. And so I think that he did have options. And I take it that he was limited without Skip. And that reflects how weak, if you have one of your four midfielders out injured, then you can't really go to a 3-5-2, because then you have no options on the bench for a midfielder. So then you have to then pivot one way or the other. But I do think after half an hour, I would have liked to have seen a midfield change proactively, or at worst, at half time. It was crying out for a change. The fact that he stuck with the formation and went until the 60th minute, 63rd minute before he made a change, to me looked far too reactive. And it was beyond reactive. It was like, I don't even know why it took so long. But like I say, the options that he had, he could have gone to a 3-5-2 if he hooked a Lucas Moura and made it more stable in the midfield. That's what I would have done. And I'm not just saying this with the benefit of hindsight. I was saying it at the time on the live stream, on the watch along that I was doing. So this is one of the reasons why I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know better than Conte. I don't. But you just have to give your opinion, guys, right? You have to give your opinion as you see it. And I saw it as the 3-4-3 is not working tonight. We need to go to the 3-5-2. How do you do that? Well, you need to bring off Lucas or Sonny and then bring on Bentancur.
Yeah, I think you got a point, especially as he didn't make a real change till sort of the 60th minute. It was almost like he left everything too late. He didn't give it a chance to work with Bentancur. And actually, because it was almost the wrong time to make the change, for me, Lucas should have gone off earlier. Like, he wasn't very good. He hasn't been good recently. And you know what? I'm one of Lucas's biggest fans. I love the guy. I love his passion. He's absolutely Tottenham through and through. But my goodness, he's been way off the boil the last couple of games. And, you can't just let... I mean, I thought Bergwijn would look pretty bright when he came on. Yeah, he got that disallowed goal. But, I mean, why wasn't that done earlier? There's so many questions I have for the decision-making. And I would agree. Conte did everything all a little bit too late. But Crocodox is on here in a bigger self up, mate. And he says, hooking someone in 30 minutes makes a point, but may bring back the toxicity we tried to get rid of in Jan. What do you think of that, Sean? Well,
I think that what you have to do, right? You have to kind of, if you're going to make that decision, you have to do sort of, again, like just to use Pete Mourinho as the reference point. He puts his arm around the guy the second he comes off the pitch, and he explicitly says to the guy in the moment, this wasn't because you were playing badly. It's because the formation was a shit show. It's on me. It's not on you. Don't worry about it. You're still going to start the next game in the 3-4-3 when it's right. But I had to change something. It's the formation and the team is more important. This is not because you were playing badly. I could have hooked anyone, right? And then you go out in the press after the fact. In the press, if whatever happens during the game, whether you go on to win it or you go on and still lose the game, he as the manager then has to come out and say that was absolutely in no part because Lucas was playing badly. It was because the formation, the balance of the team was entirely wrong, and I had to make way for a better shape and a better system. And so Lucas is still my guy. I love the guy, but whatever you have to say, but you have to make it abundantly clear to him initially in the first instance, and then back it up later to the press that it wasn't a personal thing. It wasn't because of his performance. It was because of for the benefit of the team. And I think that's the way that you get past removing the toxicity. Crocodox, if you're gonna, if Conte wanted to do that but didn't because he was worried about how Lucas would feel, then he's a people pleaser rather than a manager, right? And that's not what you want in someone that you're paying 15 million quid a year for.
That's so true. You can't bottle out of making a decision that's right for the team in order to try and avoid some sort of toxicity. That's not what you're paid to do. You just got to do what's best. And if the decision works, then the toxicity won't be there anyway because the result obviously shows. And I have more faith in the manager because of the change he's made.
Yeah, great point. And also the other thing is hopefully we should have got rid of these players that would turn toxic over not starting. We got rid of Dele Alli, we got rid of Ndombele, we got rid of Lo Celso. These are the players that, for me, are the kind of main culprits that would kind of turn their back on Conte and cause a problem in the dressing room. For me, it could still happen with other players, but these players want to play for Conte now. He's got rid of the ones he doesn't want there. Let's be honest, 90% of it anyway. So yeah, spot on. Let's bring in Nick, whose insights are absolutely fantastic. He's in the waiting room. Sean. Please stay on as well.
Okay.
If you can.
Yeah, I've got nowhere to go. If you want me to go, I can go. If you want me to stay, I can stay.
No. Please stay on. I'm going to kind of mix it up. Oh, we've never had 5 people in here. But Nick, how you doing, mate?
Doing good, guys. Doing really good. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, we're all good. We're all good, mate. Yeah, thanks for asking. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on sort of what Sean and Joe have just been discussing there in terms of do you think a sub should have been made earlier? Do you think we got to be careful on the kind of the team morale in terms of taking Lucas off at halftime, or do you think Conte played it right?
Man, I have to say Sean's a really hard act to follow because he's absolutely right. I think first off, Sean, you're brilliant. Love you. Always love to see your content, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Same with everybody here. But yeah, no, I agree 100%. It was clear a change needed to be made. We were desperately needing something in the midfield. Winks simply cannot play in a midfield 2. He doesn't press enough, nor does he handle pressure well enough, which is why you see him pulling back almost to a center back. He's next to Sanchez if you look at him at times. And that's when you had the moment where they're yelling at each other. Sanchez is telling Winks, you need to go forward. Winks is saying, no, you need to cover him. And Lloris is yelling at both of them, like, you knuckleheads need to figure out what you're doing. So it was clear a change needed to be made, whether that is going to a 3-5-2 and subbing Lucas out or putting Bentancur in for. I would have chosen Winks personally. I think having Højbjerg with a good ball carrier next to him works so much better. That's the role Winks is supposed to play. Of Højbjerg wins the ball, gets the pass to Winks. Winks would then carry it forward and make the pass that needs to be made. But it was clear we were struggling. Toxicity or anything like that just doesn't play a part. Like Sean said, at that point, that's when the manager needs to, be a manager, put his arm around the shoulder, say whatever he needs to be said, and basically put it exactly like he put it. It's not about you. It's not about what you're doing. This formation is not working. It's clear to see. Something needs to change right now. It's on me as the manager. I picked the formation. I picked the lineup. I got it wrong. But now we need to do something to win this game. And that needed to be made. I would have done it at halftime. I think the first half of the game was really, really rough. But we managed to survive, honestly. I was actually I was still a little bit optimistic going into the second half, only in that the first half was probably the worst 45 minutes we could have had and the best 45 minutes Southampton could have had, and it was still 1-1. You know what I mean? So there was still something to grab in that game.
Yeah.
But the changes needed to be proactive. Instead, we were just waiting for something to it just felt like we were waiting for them to score a goal before we decided to make a change. And we got fortunate in that Son, was able to just make some magic happen. Pierre, I've seen a lot of criticism for his performance. I won't say he had a good one.
I was just about to ask because of this comment here from Bobby K saying, so we need to someone to bring the ball out of midfield. That person is not Winks. Højbjerg can win it back, but doesn't pass to Winks.
Yeah.
Doesn't trust him. So what's your thoughts on the midfield? Because there's a lot of talk about the midfield right now.
I mean, you saw it in the match, and if you look at the heat map where the players were actually positioned, Højbjerg was dead center, like almost hand in hand with Winks where he was playing. That is just, it clearly displays Winks isn't doing enough, and because of that, Højbjerg needs to move to the right and cover his ground as well as Højbjerg's ground. So you have one midfielder doing two people's jobs in a midfield consisting of some quality when you have James Ward-Prowse right there. It's impossible. I don't care what midfielder you have. You can put N'Golo Kante out there dealing one-on-one or one-on-two, one-on-three even at times. No one's going to look good. It's pure and simple. And even in having such a terrible game, and he did have a bad game, Højbjerg was the one that put in the ball for to score the first goal, you know? So I mentioned it yesterday when we were talking about player ratings. John Madden had a saying. There's three types of players. Players who make things happen, players who watch things happen, and players who don't know what happened. And there is way too many players on our squad that don't know what happened or simply watch things happen. And the players that do make things happen are the ones that we need to support. So Højbjerg, despite having not the best game, he still made something happen. He still was able to get forward, put the ball in to score that goal.
That first goal, yeah.
You know what I mean? And the same for the Leicester match. Again, didn't have a great performance, but who made a game-saving block right at the end? Who got the interception to put that ball in for Kane to then have Bergwijn score the winner? You know what I mean? So, like, when you have players like that who, even though they have a bad game, they make things happen, you need to look at necessarily why they're having a bad game, not just, oh, Højbjerg, he's crap, he can't do it, he keeps messing up these passes. Well, no, you need to look at what's going on around him. Why is he having a bad game? And in this case, Winks is the cause, in my opinion. Anytime Winks has played in a midfield two, he does not look good. He is not strong enough of a midfielder to play in a two. You either need to put two stronger midfielders in front of him, or you simply can't have him on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. And going by the fact that you got to look around the players to start, seeing what the real problems are caused by. Good point from Carterman. Big yourself up, Carterman Farming Simulator. What an absolute name that is, by the way. I mean, maybe Farming Simulator is still popular.
That name.
Legend. But no, there's some amazing comments coming through, guys. Big up the support. But before I sort of start off another talking point, and I'm going to throw this question out to the whole panel. Joe, Andre, Sean, Nick, feel free to input. It'd be nice to have almost like a big discussion on this one. Further back, so obviously defensively, I know we've covered it a little bit with Sean, with Emerson. In that back five, right? What is the problem right now? Because for me, without going off on one, the only player that deserved to be in that team on Wednesday was Romero. The other five, actually, to be fair, Reguilon as well. But the other three were absolutely shocking, right? Sanchez, Emerson, and Ben Davies. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think we got to give Ben Davies and Sanchez the benefit of the doubt because they have been okay recently? Or do you think we just really need another back line other than Romero and Reguilon? I'm throwing that out there to everyone.
Well, here, I'll start off. I've always been a big advocator for the fact that we need to get rid of Sanchez and even Davies to a point, because, I think he was playing decently, but it's just a run of form. That's not his actual normal performance. It's just, an elevation, which happens in any team when you pumped up to play for a new manager or anything. But I think Sanchez, he's a ball watcher. He always does that. Whenever there's a goal, he just watches it go in and then he yells at someone else. Like, he was yelling at Emerson, and Emerson could have tracked back, but that wasn't his job. That was Sanchez's job to cover that guy behind him. Why is he covering another player that's in front of him when that's Romero's guy? Right? Same thing and then Davies. I would say I would put him in the doesn't know what happened category, because a lot of times, he plays decently, but then he'll make a mistake and then he just sits there and he's like, what happened? Like, how did that happen? It's like, because you messed up, man. You messed up. You either slipped or you passed it badly or something, and then you're just sitting there and you don't know what happened. But it just is that it's a lack of concentration. And those two players especially they just really piss me off. But I'm gonna stop now.
No, it's just I saw the anger like building up slowly on Joe. I love it. Let it all out. This is why we do these shows. This is why we do these shows.
That's it. Therapy session, boys. Therapy session.
Yeah.
Joe's probably just sitting there laughing at us, like he's absolutely happy that he's sort of with the neutral perspective of coming on here. But I mean, just. Yeah,
still laughing at Farming Simulator. I don't know why it's got to me.
But for me, guys, I feel like Ben Davies and Sanchez need Eric Dyer. Like Eric, I don't want to understate the importance of something such an intangible thing that you wouldn't think about. But Eric Dyer being able to speak obviously English, but also he can speak in Spanish and Portuguese fluently.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
He can communicate with Emerson in Portuguese. He can communicate with Spanish to Romero, to Sanchez in Spanish, I think, and to Reguilon as well. Right. And none of those. I mean, I think Reguilon speaks pretty good English, but Romero doesn't, and neither does Emerson Royale, and neither does Sanchez. Right.
And Dyer speaks English very aggressively, like we saw against Norwich in the FA Cup, where he jumped in the stand. Like he really does.
No, he does, right? But I do think it's something that we don't think about, right? I'm pretty certain that Davies doesn't speak Spanish or Portuguese, and if they can't speak English, having that stability from a player in the middle of a three who can communicate. It sounds ridiculous to say it, but I think it's such an important thing. And Eric Dyer being out of the team injured, Romero's back in. Romero was fantastic against Brighton, but Ben Davies wasn't particularly great against Southampton. Neither was Emerson Royal had a good game offensively, but there were moments where all of them were poor defensively. Like I say, if it wasn't for a good performance from Hugo Lloris and a bad performance from the Brighton forwards, that game could have been a different game. All of the stats, Brighton outperformed us on shots, on corners, on possession, on passes made, on passes completed. Look, the stats tell a different story to the main scoreline that counted. And against Southampton, it was obviously par for the course. And I think that it's crazy to suggest it, but Eric Dyer's ability to communicate adds a little bit of stability, and it can't be understated how important that is until the players that are fairly new to the Premier League get used to the English language and can therefore pivot and adapt and learn and not need to have to worry about that communication. So Eric Dyer's absence, I think, is a big problem. Sorry, that's what I feel.
Yeah, no, I was gonna just say that's not ridiculous at all. As someone who studied linguistics, I didn't even think of that. The language barrier that makes Dyer such a huge asset. Even if his performances are decent generally, but not the best, the fact that he can communicate with all those defenders in different languages 100% makes him such a valuable asset there, because if he needs to really get someone's attention, he'll just talk to them in their normal language, like their first language.
Yeah, that was actually that actually brilliantly touches on the point that I wanted to bring up, which is I think what we are lacking. It's not necessarily that obviously we lack quality. I don't think Sanchez or Davies, and even at this point Emerson, are a top 4 defense. However, when you look at the competition that we're struggling against, you don't need one. What we're really lacking is just someone to hold everybody to account and to be consistent. You have players that simply are not on the same wavelength, and that's creating gaps. If you look at the wing backs, there's times when Reguilon is pushing forward, Emerson is not on the same level as him. So you now have an escape route for Southampton to get the ball out. And vice versa. You have Sanchez, who doesn't know who to mark. You have Davies, who doesn't know who's behind him and is trying to get the ball and slipping. So you have a lot of just people not on the same wavelength, and this is where we are lacking Dyer, the leader in the back line, to communicate and say, you need to be here, you need to mark him. Once you have that, then you will see, these guys at least to be on the same wavelength and not leave these glaring openings. And him having the ability to speak several languages helps with that communication. And we saw, like I said, in the Southampton game when we had Winks, Emerson, and Sanchez all arguing with each other of where they're supposed to be, who they're supposed to be covering. They didn't know, like they looked like they didn't know where they were supposed to be. And that's a problem. Now you would hope Lloris as the captain would be able to step in, but you don't have the same view of the game when you're a goalkeeper, when you're standing all the way at the back. That's why you need leaders everywhere on the pitch, and that's where I think we are really missing Dyer. Romero, as great as he is, isn't a leader. He's aggressive. He's that bulldog. He will chase people down and break ankles if he needs to, but that's almost purely on instinct. That's no one's telling him to do that, nor is he going to turn around and hold anybody to account. Sanchez is the one that we hoped would step up to become that leader, given how long he's been in the squad and having been around figures like Vertonghen and Toby and some great defenders, but he hasn't filled that role. Dyer's the one that we need. I almost can't believe we're saying this, but Dyer is the key to our defense right now.
Yeah,
unbelievable. Andre, sorry. So yeah, please do add, Andre. Let's bring in Ellie, because I know she's waiting around, and we set up the 6 o'clock slot, so we're actually a little bit late. And Ellie was absolutely fantastic last week, and I believe got the Brighton score spot on, by the way.
Yeah, it was 3-1.
So fair play to Ellie, and she was at that game. But Ellie, I'm bringing you on here. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. You see, my prediction came true.
Yeah, good prediction.
Carry on through to Southampton as well. We played very badly.
Ellie, I can see you're massively modest about it as well. It's really nice to see.
I know. You know what I was going to do? I was going to mention about Davies, because all around me we were cracking up when he slipped.
Okay.
Because like I said, I've seen singing in the rain, but I haven't seen slipping in the rain. You know what? It was such a klutzy thing to do. Obviously, the ground is slippy, right? So you can forgive him that. But the way he fell, and he sort of done like a pivot, and he span.
Ballerina Davies.
Yeah, no, he got turned every direction, and it just ended poorly.
Yeah, it's not his first time falling like that and conceding a goal right after either.
Yeah. But
The slip was bad. The slip was honestly bad. But what I found worse was the reaction afterwards when we had 4 defenders standing on the yard line.
Yep.
Just ball watching. No one stepping in to cut that ball out.
Yep.
Like you said, people watching and not reacting.
Yeah, exactly.
Too slow.
Ellie, what's your thoughts on obviously the shambles against Southampton, and also like what Tottenham Tantrum Goal, big up by the way, great channel, is in it saying there's no leadership at all in the defence or the midfield. We're missing Skip and Dyer, Royale and Sanchez. There's no communication between them. What's your thoughts on that comment in terms of the leadership through the core of the team?
I think the communication's bad, right, as well. It's not just leadership, because you can have the leaders, because Højbjerg, he's in there, he's orchestrating things, but he can't cover 3 or 4 positions in midfield. It was plain to see that Winks was too weak alongside him.
Yeah.
So if I was Conte, I would have brought off Winks much earlier and then put Bentancur in with Højbjerg. Then you would have seen the difference then, because they would have linked up really well. And I know Højbjerg had the stinker of a match, and probably in hindsight, maybe he did deserve to go off. But if I was the manager, I would have taken off Winks a lot earlier, not in the second half. I would have taken him off in the first half, because it was completely... They were walking through our midfield. And every time we did get the ball, Winks didn't know what to do. He wasn't linking up with Højbjerg. Højbjerg was covering him. And then the passing was atrocious. Our passing was the worst I've ever seen, because it's usually quite bad regardless. Even when we play well, it's not the best, especially from out the back. We're very tentative when we're bringing the ball out the back, which is it alarms you, because you think, when Sanchez gets it especially.
Yeah, exactly. What are your thoughts on Sanchez? I wanted to ask you that as well, Ellie, because there's quite a mixed reaction, especially in the last few games. Sort of Sanchez has been quite decent, performing above what he normally does. But then he goes and puts in that performance against Southampton, arguably one of the worst players on the pitch, in my opinion, anyway. I don't know if you guys agree on the panel, but What are your opinions on Sanchez in general, Ellie? Do you think he should be a starter going forward, or do you think we need to look in the summer for better options? Hello? Is my mic muted?
Interesting,
No,
Ellie.
no, you're good.
I like where you're going with that one, Ellie. The less said, the better.
Ellie doing her best Deli impression, just disappearing.
That's unbelievable. Oh, brilliant.
I think she has issues with her internet occasionally, so she drops out on a few streams, not by choice.
To be fair, it's probably Daniel Levy, like, listening in, saying, like, don't spread the hate about this team. It's fantastic. We don't need to invest. So, probably.
Tell you what, James, have you seen the news tonight?
What's that?
The Daily Record, the tabloid from Glasgow, suggesting that this Los Angeles media fund, LAMF Global Ventures, is apparently putting a £3 billion bid for.
I don't buy it.
I don't buy it. I mean, we can talk about it if you want, but we.
Do you know what? It opens up an absolute other kettle of fish, doesn't it? In terms of this discussion, it's probably not a tier 1 source. We don't know how true it is to be starting with. Obviously, as a credible sort of news source for Spurs, we didn't post it. Andre, based on. I think Andre will back me up on this one, that it's not a tier 1 source. There's no actual official confirmation. And also, like, no other kind of top journalist has actually reported on it. Joe being in the industry himself might be able to give us a little bit more insight. Joe, have you seen anything today on this?
Well, the company I work for actually own Daily Record, so I've seen it kind of been batted around in the chat, but there's nothing too I think there's maybe weight behind there being talks about it, or even like a potential bid, but I can't see it happening, and I don't think it's kind of got past the first stage, if not even the initial stage. But we'll see.
Can you see that happening though, Joe? Like an American investment? Oh, can you see, like, I don't know. I don't even know. Sean, I know you do a lot of the finances and look into depth with that, but £3 billion obviously sounds like a lot of money, but realistically, that stadium's worth over £1 billion, isn't it? So, like, what's going on there?
I think the way that it's been structured according to the Daily Record report would be that it's under a SPAC, right? So the company LAMF Global Ventures, they only IPO'd in America for $200 million in November, right? And so they themselves are essentially a media company that put together films, docu-series, TV series, that sort of thing. Yeah. So owning a football club is completely outside of their traditional wheelhouse. Plus, they just haven't got anything like the sort of money themselves, which is why they would do what's a SPAC. And for those who don't know what a SPAC is, essentially a SPAC is it's like a leverage buyout that people would go to private companies that are startups that are huge growth, but that need running capital immediately, and then the SPAC would give them the money to be able to continue their growth and keep going. But what they sacrifice is that the SPAC then launches that company as an IPO later in 2 years' time, 3 years' time. But in order for them to keep their money going, for the startup to keep growing, what they sacrifice is that the SPAC itself essentially is the buyout company that benefits from the IPO if the IPO goes well on the stock listing. But Tottenham Hotspur used to be on the London Stock Exchange. And if they were to want to go back to the London Stock Exchange, which is a mechanism that Daniel Levy and ENIC could use if they ever wanted to get out of the company, but they wouldn't need to go via a SPAC to do it. They could just go back to the London Stock Exchange and value their company at whatever JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs or whoever would be the underwriter of the IPO would value it at. So there's literally, for me, there's absolutely zero credibility to the story. But it's an interesting talking point, and I'll be talking about it on my show tomorrow night. But I don't think there's any credibility to it. The other thing I think that's worth pointing out, that even if it was credible, the guy who owns LAMF Global Ventures is Jeffrey Soros, who is George Soros's nephew. And I don't know, not to get into politics, but you talk about people you don't want running your club, depending on how you feel about your moral compass. You don't want Saudis, if you don't want the Saudi Arabians, or the people that are oil rich owning your company because maybe they deal in human rights, that you don't particularly fancy being a part of your club, or you don't want Russians doing the same thing for the same reasons, then, I personally don't want anything to do with anyone that's got anything to do with George Soros being a part of Tottenham Hotspur either, because that guy's
Okay.
Not to get into it, yeah.
Yeah, without going off on one about politics, I can see he's waiting in the waiting room. We actually finally managed to kind of track him down. I thought he was already on the plane at sort of Dublin Airport, ready to go to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday. But we've actually got him in. It's the one and only Harry Kane's number one fan. Dave Harris, here he is. How you doing, Dave?
Absolutely buzzing, lad. Absolutely buzzing. Can't wait to get over there and cheer Big H on.
Have you got your suitcase packed already? Love letters to Harry Kane. You got it all sorted?
No suitcase needed, lad. It's a day trip in and out. You know, get over there, cause a bit of a ruckus, get one of a strand of Harry Kane's hair, and come back with a souvenir, lad. In and out.
A strand of hair, unbelievable. Do you know what, Dave? I know you've done a lot of ranting and raving after Southampton, but let's just get your initial thoughts on that game. Jumping back to that subject, what on earth happened?
Mentality, man. It's down to mentality. Look, you know, you look at some of the bigger teams, Liverpool, City, Chelsea. Even when they don't play well, they still get the result 9 times out of 10. Look, it's just disappointing, isn't it? I mean, it's the same old Achilles heels as always before. Winks and Sanchez, in my opinion, absolute diabolical. Yes, Emerson was poor too, but I just look, Winks. I'm fed up with saying about this guy, but every time he plays in midfield, we just get overrun. It's just that simple. We cannot compete in midfield. A lot of people are giving out about Højbjerg. I actually disagree, and I'll be honest with you. I watched the game back, and what I did watch is Højbjerg pressing the midfield. Every opportunity you get, pressing the ball. He's looking around for help. Usually, Ollie Skip would be there to help him. He's looking around, and where's Harry Winks? You know, sitting back there, chilling, breathing in fresh air, and soaking up the atmosphere. I mean, I get this guy's a Tottenham fan, but he's taking it literally on the pitch. You know what I mean? It's like, just get involved, Harry. Look, I can understand why Højbjerg came off and not Harry Winks. We can't keep expecting Højbjerg to keep completing 90 minutes. I think he was taken off with a view of starting maybe Wolves with Bentancur in midfield. Harry Winks' ball, what he was in the midfield to do with his passing, I think absolutely shocking. I think, you know, at one stage Sanchez gave it to him. Winks got bundled over, lost the ball like we expect him to do anyway. I mean, I don't expect anything else from the guy. It led to one of their chances. As soon as I seen that, I'm like, get this guy off the field, because this is a guy that them midfielders or them defenders are looking for, to be able to give the ball, to play out and transition through the midfield up to the forward line. And you can't do that with Harry Winks, because he's never taking the ball on the half turn. He's always running towards his man taking the ball. And because he's not on the half turn, he can't see forward. He can't see the other options forward. But when he's facing the way he's taking the ball, all he ever has is backwards and sideways. And the reason why he can't turn on the ball to get forward is because he doesn't have the strength. And he knows that. That's why he keeps it safe all the time. But look, Harry Winks is at the stage where he knows he's not what Tottenham need. He knows he can't be what Bentancur came in and done after 20 seconds. I mean, it gave me a hard on. The guy, a little bit of scale out of a tight space, gets the ball, pings it all the way across the other side of the pitch, straight to Lucas Moura's feet. Harry Winks knows he can't do that, and that's why he keeps playing sideways, backwards, these safe passes to keep his stats up, to make him look better than what he actually is. But when you go back and look at games, anytime he's in midfield, we get overrun. Look, Højbjerg wasn't great. He was not great by any means, nowhere near his usual standards. But he done the running for the two of them in there. You even look at the effect Højbjerg had on the game compared to Harry Winks. Højbjerg actually got one of the assists. He won the free kick that for Romero's disallowed goal. He actually had an effect on the game, even though he wasn't his usual self, whereas Harry Winks had zero effect on it. I sat there thinking, look, maybe I misjudged it, maybe I got it wrong. Let's kind of see why Conte kept on Harry Winks. So I watched the game. I didn't understand it. So I said, you know what I'll do? I'll go and double check. I'll go and watch Match of the Day. See if there's any Winks highlights in there. No highlights for the guy whatsoever, apart from negative ones.
Why do you think Conte rates him?
I don't think he does, to be honest with you. Look, Conte never ever thought his name would be brought up in the same sentence as Harry Winks. Let's be honest about this. It's not something he ever thought he would have to answer in his press conferences or anything like that. Conte, Harry Winks, never ever. Like, I'm sure he's sitting there pulling his hair like me. But when it comes to Harry Winks, one thing I suppose I do have to give him credit for, you can probably clip this, but the one thing I give him credit for, and I think the one reason why he stayed, is because Ndombele Lo Celso and Dele Alli's attitude were so poor You just could not have them around the club. But at least Winks, even though you put him out there, he will try, even though his best isn't good enough. His attitude is right. Look, come the summer, I think he's gone. Yeah. Harvey White's already training with the first team. He'll be taking that homegrown spot, that through the academy spot that Harry Winks currently occupies. I think we'd be looking to ship on Harry Winks. I think we'll be looking to buy in one centre midfielder. Plus, you have Papa Matasar coming back as well. So, I think it's just more or less keep him motivated to the end of the season. But then there's another guy, Davinson Sanchez. Oh, sorry, Sean. Yes.
Before we rant about Davinson Sanchez, because I do want to go back over to Sanchez and hear your thoughts on that, Dave. But TJ's made a point on what you said about keeping his stats up. He's saying his stats are absolutely shit. They're worse than so-called lazy Tanguy and Ndombele. And he's also saying Winks is clever, he's the teacher's pet and he trains well, but above all, he's one of our own, in quotation marks. What are your thoughts on in terms of his stats aren't great? So what is he doing there? Like, what is
his passing stats? It's his passing stats. Look at his passing stats. They're better than Højbjerg's. So it makes him look better. Oh, well, he keeps the ball. Højbjerg gives it away. But what people don't want to talk about is Højbjerg tries to play progressive football. He tries to go forward with it, even though it's not really his main role in the team. Whereas Harry Winks doesn't. He passes it 5 yards sideways or backwards. And little. Like, how many times have we seen him run towards the centre-back, take it off him and give it straight back to him? And you're just looking at it. You're like, seriously? Honestly, I could do that. Just give me the kit, put me in the kit, and I'll go and do that. No, in fact, you don't even have to pay me. I'll do it for free. You know what I mean? It's just it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, you're spot on. Sorry, Sean, what were you going to say?
Well, I actually wanted to ask the panel, based on what Dave just mentioned, if you don't mind me asking a question.
Of course, go on.
So you look at like, a lot of people right now, you know, after what happened, a little bit, like, you know, despondent. They're thinking top four's done. We're not going to make it. And I'm always like, well, look, in the job that I do, right, like the specific thing that I'm an expert in, you don't have to be the best to be number one. You just have to be better than the rest. And when we look at the top four race, you have, you know, us and a few other teams that are going for the same rate. But what I'm seeing in the press today is so much toxicity around West Ham, so much toxicity around with Arsenal fans, and so much toxicity with Manchester United fans. And what I wanted to ask you guys was, look at what happened when Kurt Zouma, when he did what he did to the cat. Apparently, there's now mutiny in the ranks in West Ham because none of them realised that this guy was getting paid 130 grand a week, and because after the fine came out, that he got fined 260 grand a week. 260 grand is the maximum fine that the club can impose on a player. Apparently, half a dozen of West Ham's first team players are down tools at the training ground saying, "Why the hell is that guy getting paid 130 when I'm only getting paid 70? When I'm only getting paid 60?" And so, what I want to ask you guys is, how much additional benefit do you think it is getting rid of the three players that we've got rid of? When you think about Tanguy and Ndombele, that for all, you know, as far as we're aware, for all of the noise, he was getting paid 200 grand a week. Do you think there was an unspoken nastiness and toxicity and disrespect that some of the players, like you look at an Oliver Skip, as far as I can tell, looking at some of the websites, he's only apparently still on a junior contract. I think he's getting paid 20 grand or 18 grand a week. Whereas Ndombele was getting 200 grand a week, putting in the shifts that he put in. How important do you think it's going to be, and I'll ask everyone, going into the final 40% of the season, having got rid of that stuff compared to West Ham, where they're now realising that there's this guy that's a toxic element who's getting paid 30, 40, 50% more than they are when they didn't realise it? Like, is that an added bonus for us now that we've got rid of those players and now everybody that's in the club is earning their wage and everyone that's playing well is getting paid in the right structure, and there's none of those nasty surprises that West Ham have suddenly happened to find themselves go through? I don't know if that's a question or just a
rant. No, Andre's dying to answer. I can see he's leaning so far forward to answer this question.
When Ndombele came in, I was excited. When I saw how much he was getting paid, I'm like, he better be the next, like, Iniesta, the prodigal son or something, because other than that, they're setting him up for failure. Because a guy who's getting paid basically as much as Harry Kane, you know, you're going to upset everyone. You know, Heung-min Son, everyone's going to be like, why are you paying that guy that amount of money? He is, for the amount of money.
More than the club captain, by the way. More than world-class keeper Lloris.
Yeah, for the amount of money he's getting paid.
Wow.
Yeah. Right? It's like, his expectations are more, right? The more you pay someone, the better performance we expect. If he was getting paid not that much, I would understand, but his performances, I'd be like, okay, for the amount of money. But no, if you're getting paid more than the captain of the club, you need to be putting performances like Harry Kane in that midfield. You got to be the next Iniesta, basically. Other than that, absolute shit. I could not handle that guy. His attitude for the amount of money that he was getting paid was ridiculous. I'm like, you cannot be upset. You are getting paid 200,000 euros a week and you're complaining. Like, get out of here.
TJ's saying that Ndombele wasn't on 200k a week, but I think it's fair to say like he was on a higher 100ks a week. That's for certain. I don't think anyone knows the actual ballpark figure, like 100% confirmed, TJ. But the point that Sean's making still stands. Like, even if it's 160k a week, the guy's on 160k a week compared to Oliver Skip, who's on 20 to 30k a week, and he's doing 5 times as less probably, and he's on 5 times more than Skip. It's just completely. It's a great question. Andy's in there, big yourself up, Andy. But yeah, sorry, Nick, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add on to that. I was like, if you compare just the amount of work rate and the actual performances, it obviously isn't comparable. I remember when Zuma was looking to get out of Chelsea, his wage demands were a big sticking point for a lot of clubs. I do remember that was definitely talked about. So it's no surprise that this is coming out now and exploding the locker room. As what Sean said, I mean, I was one of the biggest ones harping about. I think the transfer window was a success just because of how important it is to get people like that out of the club. You can have an incredibly high quality team, and we don't need to even look that far. Manchester United has incredible quality in their locker room, and yet they can barely, they can't even get by Burnley or Middlesbrough. I mean, that shows you what locker room divisions can do. They have one of the best players, arguably one of the greatest of all time. What does that actually do for them? They're trying to limp along to top 4 like everybody else. That's what a divided locker room looks like. And until you fix that, you're not going anywhere, no matter how great, what quality you have of player. So doing that was a big step for us in the right direction. But yeah, right now this race to top 4, I said it yesterday on Dave's channel. It's a race on ice covered in banana peels. Like, we're just trying. Everyone is trying to accident their way into top 4.
Yeah, but this West Ham mutiny, if it is what it is, I'm sure it's probably overcooked by the media. But if it's true, it's going to help us, right? What we want is the other clubs to be more toxic and more. Divisive than we are, and we don't like we've got a fairly unified team right now.
Listen, I mean, don't worry about it. We'll find our own way to cause problems for ourselves, but it just seems like everybody is doing it to themselves and trying to one up each other by shooting ourselves in the foot. So I mean, we'll see what we do next to try and match them.
Yeah. There's a video coming out every week. It's something controversial, isn't there? So no wonder it's going to come out for Spurs at some point. Sean, that was a really, really good talking point. Joe, you've been a little bit quiet. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I was going to ask Sean, where did you actually read that? Did you remember? Oh,
it was on TalkSport. It was on TalkSport this morning. Simon Jordan and Martin Keown were talking about the problems with Arsenal, and then Jim White came out and gave the update from West Ham. So I don't know how true it is, but
maybe it's funny. I actually wrote about it this morning, and it's like.
Maybe they got it from your.
No, like,
sorry, mate.
It's definitely there's definitely genuine there's definitely something there because the sources came out from people close to the club, and then that's how it got spread around as everything does. I mean, I feel like in any line of work, doesn't even matter what you do. If you feel like you're doing a better job than someone else, it's getting paid way more than you are. There's a bit of angst,
animosity. Yeah,
and I know that obviously after what Zuma did, they've all kind of felt like they've had to club together for the sake of the club, regardless of what they feel about him. So I feel like having that, and then not knowing his wage and that coming out, and I think it's just you would be mad. I don't think it's going to become a big problem. I think it's one of those things that's just going to come and pass, and because he is a big member in their defence, annoyingly for us because of obviously what he's done, but. Yeah, there is definitely truth to it. It definitely has been hyped a little bit, and I can admit that. But there's definitely legs to that.
So do you think that helps us, or do you think that will harm them, or do you think they'll get over it pretty quickly? What do you think that? How much of an impact will that have on West Ham's top 4 hopes?
I mean, they seem like a very tight-knit squad anyway, so that's why I think it would pass. Obviously, in some other camps it wouldn't do, and you were saying about Tottenham that being the case with Ndombele. If you're seeing him throwing his arms around and storming off against Morecambe, and he's on 60k a week more than you are, you're going to be a bit pissed. But I think it should come and pass for them. I'm not going to say they're lucky. David Moyes has built an amazing tight-knit squad, and as much as it's West Ham, you've got to admire what they're doing over there. I don't think they'll make the top 4. I think they'll kind of be in and around it, but I don't know. I feel like this is their big year. I feel like there's going to be people kind of being grabbed from other teams at the end of the season.
But you know what? With West Ham, they've actually shot themselves in the foot because they're having literally their best season. Maybe last season obviously was brilliant as well. It could be their best chance to ever get top 4 with the other teams like sort of messing up. And now they sort of had an off the field incident that's probably going to cause problems in the in the dressing room. Like, whether they realise it or not, that's going to cause problems in the dressing room. 100%. Whether Zuma gets some kind of sanction where he's not allowed to play, it's still early days on that for a start. And the other thing is, like, how do these players see Zuma now? Like I'm not being funny, right? Without going on West Ham related, we're Spurs related. In all seriousness, though, like. What's his name? Mikel Antonio's come out and started comparing it to other things, almost to try and put a smoke screen up to the actual situation, which is he's booted a cat round his kitchen and thinks it's funny. That's absolutely sick.
Chris Kirkland had an absolute nightmare, though. Do you see that?
No, what was that?
He was he basically said it. He had good intentions, but he said it in the worst way possible on BBC.
Oh no!
He was literally saying about, he basically compared it to racism and said for that they get like 8 to 10 match bans. What's he going to get? And he even said this could be worse because the animal's defenseless. So he basically said that Kurt Zuma kicking his cat around the kitchen was worse than any racial abuse in football. And then
that's why he randomly said it, right? That's why.
And he came back with an apology, but it was like, do you want the spade, mate? Because you just dig in. He made it even worse by trying to cover it up.
Oh no!
Wow!
So Antonio came out and obviously mentioned that because it's doing the rounds at the moment. He just had an absolute nightmare. It was one of those. He tried to
what a donut! Come on, bro.
He tried to come out and say something, and obviously like kind of be powerful, and they say something like insightful, and he ended up just making it worse, and ended up
more shocking than that is, I mean, who at West Ham is handling their PR? Because they have handled this whole situation in the worst possible way.
It's probably Danny Dyer or someone like that.
Did they bring in Steve Hitchens to handle the PR? Because this is just insanity.
Steve Hitchens, he's out of a job. He might be on there. Social media PR. He's probably all over it, to be honest with you.
God, I mean, I don't know how hard it is if what happened is plain to see. It speaks for itself. How are you going to start him on the same day and then say, well, he's our most important player. We got to play him.
Yeah.
What? And then having Mikel Antonio coming out and saying these things? It's insane to me.
Yeah. Well, I just want to add quickly. I think it was TJ who said that to check our research, we wouldn't say anything that's not factual here. So I was pulling it from a Dan Kilpatrick article, by the way, the 200K.
Mm. So, I think it's 10.4 million a year. When you break that down by 52, I do think it works out 200K.
Yeah, 10.4 million a year.
But listen, Sean's point still stands. Like, even if he's on 100K, which we know he's not, right? The point still stands. Skip is on 20, 30K a week. And he's doing 10 times the amount as Ndombele, and Ndombele's doing nothing. Doesn't want to be here, still chilling because he knows he'll still get that paycheck. It's not like if he doesn't play well, he gets 10K. The guy still gets 140K, whether he turns into what he's supposed to be, or whether he walks around the park like we've seen him do for 90% of the time. And that's the problem. That's where the problem lies in the wage structure.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, he wouldn't have come if we weren't offering that amount. That's the only reason why he came to us. It's clear from moment one, from the very first training session, he did not want to be at Spurs at all. The only reason he was here is because of the ridiculous amount of money we were willing to pay him. So when you add all of that together, it's terrible.
Yeah, and you saw in the documentary too, guys, that he looked very sort of secluded from the team. He just hung out with Aurier and with Sissoko because they, the French squad, but they both left. So I really wonder how he felt being in the team now that his two buddies were gone. And if it was a social aspect like that too, it's like, dude, you're getting paid a lot of money. Just do the job. Do your job.
So Endombella's contract, 5 years at 52 million for the 5 years, works out at 10.4 million per year, and that works out at 200k a week.
Bloody hell.
There you go.
Wow.
Boom. Maths.
Guys.
research. I went and done the research. TJ told me to.
Dave, when you're on that plane, mate, get some more research done. It's absolutely golly when you come out.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm for Spurs related. I am one of the research guys. So I mean, I would never hop on here and spread some numbers that aren't factual. Just put that, make it sure.
Guys, I'm sure there's so many different news publications that say like one's 140k, one's 180k, whatever it is. The point is the guy was getting overpaid to literally walk around the pitch doing absolutely fuck all. That's the point we're making here.
Yeah.
Really,
the facts are is 200k a week too, though.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, hook, line, and sinker, that is all we have time for this week on Fan Phoning Friday. We've had an absolute blast. It's been absolutely fantastic. We've had so many people in here, so many comments, so many great talking points. Thank you so much to all the guests that joined, Sean, Dave and Nick, and of course Ellie before she dipped my question and didn't answer it and backed out. But before we end up, guys, there's 30 of you in here. Make sure you smash the like button. It takes literally 2 seconds. Subscribe if you're new, and check out all these guys below. Sean, where can we find you?
At Spurs Talk Show on Twitter, at Spurs Talk Show on YouTube. Easy.
Fantastic. Guys, get over there. It's an awesome channel. You find me there. You find Dave there at times. It's absolutely brilliant. Nick, have you got any social media you want to promote, or are you just here for the good times?
No, man, I'm just along for the ride. I'm along for the good times. You'll find me on everybody's channels here.
Absolutely love it, mate. Thanks so much for joining again. And so many people in here. Like, there's so many names. It'll take me too long to list. Like, there's been so many people in here really, really loving the show, and big yourselves up. And obviously, Dave, not that anyone needs to know where they find you, because, I mean, you've got about like an army of 6,000 on the Harris Army almost, mate. But where can we find you anyway, just in case people don't know, so they can get over there?
No, close to 6k. You don't want to be false and spread numbers, man. It's close to 6k. Look. All I want to say is, if the animal rights authorities thought they had it bad with Zuma, well, they're going to have it bad this weekend when Dave and the Irish Hotspur crew go wolves hunting. Cannot wait to absolutely rip wolves apart. You can find me over at the Irish Hotspur.
Absolutely spot on. Absolutely brilliant, guys. And again, like I said, absolutely brilliant panel. Really enjoyed it today. Joe and Andre, obviously, thanks again, guys, as well.
Of course, always happy to be here.
That's all for this week, guys. We will see you again next Friday for the Fan Phoning show. But obviously, we have many more shows throughout the week to come on your screens and on your podcasts. So check them out. All the best, guys. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.